when American activist John Prendergast has something to say about Africa, presidents and policymakers stop to listen. He has dared to travel to such hotspots as South Sudan to uncover evidence of hunger, civil strife and genocide. VOA's Castiel recently spoke with Prendergast about his collaboration with Hollywood actor and fellow activist George Clooney and what the two want to achieve in Africa.
With just a cameraman in tow, John Prendergast and his friend, the actor George Clooney, make an unscheduled landing into the dangerous terrain known as South Sudan.
So first we went to the refugee camps, and then we crossed the border without a visa, crossed the border into Sudan, and just drove north into the Nuba Mountains to learn from the people themselves what they were experiencing and what was really going on in this new conflict that has erupted over the last year.
Has Sudan relented to some extent since you last went there? Are they letting aid get through, and has the violence decreased somewhat?
They finally signed a memorandum of understanding to allow humanitarian access in. That's on paper. People on the ground in those places who are now seeing starvation for the first time in this particular cycle of conflict. We're seeing deaths. We're seeing malnutrition rates spiraling. We're seeing diseases related to malnutrition escalate. The aid has to go in as of yesterday.
This isn't the pair's first foray into Sudan. After visiting the border areas in 2010, the two developed a way to spy on the warlords by aiming satellites right into their territories. John says George came up with the idea based on his own celebrity status.
If I get chased around by the paparazzi, if I get chased around by Google Earth, wherever I am, wherever I'm standing, why can't we do that? Why can't we give that same kind of celebrity to some of these war criminals like President Bashir? And it was like a throwaway line, I thought, but he's like, no, I'm serious. Why can't we do this? Yeah, why not?
Through analysis of satellite imagery, the Satellite Sentinel project can identify chilling warning signs: elevated roads for moving heavy armor, lengthened airstrips for landing attack aircraft, buildups of troops, tanks, and artillery preparing for invasion, and sound the alarm. And how and to whom do you disseminate the data?
Yeah,
for what purpose?
It's a great question, because we argued a lot about this at the beginning, debated it, should we do this and then make it available to the policymakers? But they often have some of this information. It's never a question of, do we know? It's a question of, now that we know, what are we going to do about it?
And pushing influential policymakers is what John Prendergast and George Clooney do best. The two have successfully managed to take their concerns about Sudan directly to the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill.
George has been great on this. We went and saw President Obama together and Secretary Clinton and a number of other key leaders, at least in the United States, in terms of pressing and pushing for a more robust diplomatic effort to try to prevent war between the two parties.
When it comes to crafting strategy to address human rights crimes, that's where Prendergast takes over. He's the co-founder of the Enough Project, a Washington-based organization that advocates peace, protection, and punishment for warlords.
Punishment is really about accountability. It's about justice, is that when there are terrible crimes against humanity that have been committed, there needs to be some kind of answering for those crimes. So we've been very strong supporters of the International Criminal Court, but we're also very strong supporters of building up the indigenous judicial capacities of the states that we work on.
So whether he's in his office in Washington or tracking alleged war criminals, the peoples of Africa have an advocate who's willing to bend the rules or call in a few famous friends.
People, from whether they're in the periphery and supporting the rebellions, or whether they're in the center and supporting the protest movements, want some kind of change. They're demanding some kind of change. So what we're trying to say is, okay, at least the United States and other countries who care about what is happening in Sudan should listen to what people are saying and try to figure out how we can help. And I'm talking about sending in U.S. military. I'm not talking about overthrowing the government. I'm talking about helping the Sudanese people figure out their own future. They want a democratic transition. We should figure out ways to be supportive of that and get other countries around the world to help in supporting that democratic transition, just like we've tried to do with other countries in that region.
Carol Castiel, VOA News, Washington.